Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel. Open mic number 198. Hope everyone's doing well today. And tonight we're heading back into some depositions. We got another one joining us here. Who we got here? Well, there's Susan just sliding in. Great timing.
Hello. I just walked in.
I figured that's what I just told everyone right before we went live here. So, yep, we got a couple of. Well, we don't have many depositions left. Like I said last night during reading with the crew, we've got the two we're going to do today, and then there's two more. The last two are Andrew Colburn and Gene Cachet. Woohoo! So, anyway, interesting reading with the crew last night. I enjoyed that. Thought-provoking for sure. Anyway, tonight we're going to be looking at Fred Nicholson and Larry Conrad. Larry Conrad's actually first. And the first deposition is it's going to be about 60 pages, and then Fred Nicholson is 30 pages, so it's going to be less than 30 actually. So shouldn't take us too long to get through these. Both of these guys are former Manitowoc County detectives back during the time of the Andrew Colburn jail phone call, as it were. And there's a document, I spent a little time trying to find it, but there's actually a document that we've got that shows it's Gene Cachet interviewing these guys back in, I think it was 96. And I just need to find the document. I don't want to say something that's incorrect about that document, but it is lending to this this around this call. I won't say directly to this call, but anyway, I'll try to find that document and get it linked in the description for anybody that wants it. I ran out of time and I couldn't find it. It's not like I don't have a couple documents laying around. I'm just saying. So, a couple thousand. Anyway, not going to spend a lot of time here. Just want to say hello to everyone right quick. Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Ready for it.
Did Sam get you settled? Did Sam get you settled down?
He's settled down. He'll be snoring in a minute or two.
Good. And Cherie, thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Open Mic.
And Susan slid in, burnt tires off her car, and made it.
That's about it.
There you go. Well,
I'm ready to go, Jack.
And Jay, across the pond.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to tonight. And hello, everybody on the panel.
Excellent. All right, let me pop this on the screen here. Yep. First up, we have Larry Conrad. Now remember, the 5 depositions on the 13th. And we've already done Dvorak and who the hell we did. I can't remember the other one we did. Then Larry Conrad and this Fred Nicholson. And then, like I said, the last one on the 13th is Andrew Colburn. His is really short, like 20 minutes. 20 pages or something. I don't. It's not very long at all. So let's take a look at what we got here. We'll just scroll down before I blow this up. As you can see, this starts at 2:03. There's already been a couple. I have to blow this up, right? I'm not going to be able to see it. I need a new set of eyes. Of course, Lynn and Kelly. Got Covelli and Bascom. I'll do Covelli and Bascom. Jay, if you could do Pollen and Mayer. And then, of course, Stephen Avery is present. I'm actually surprised we don't have others, but then, of course, there's several exhibits that got shown. and we'll cover those. Interesting, this 143 search warrant for Gregory Allen. We don't have a copy of that. We do have a copy of. I don't remember. I don't remember if we have the actual report, DCI report. I'm pretty sure we do, but I can't remember for sure from Amy Lehman and Deb Strauss interviewing this guy. But they interviewed pretty much everyone that they called for deposition. And there's a taped interview. It's Exhibit 144. Taped interview with Stephen Avery. I don't know what that is. I was looking at this earlier. I'd like to have it, but I doubt that it exists anymore. Or if it does, Zollner's got it, and we won't get it. I mean, but we were told that all these documents and exhibits were turned over to Zollner by Glenn and Kelly some time ago. Handwritten Couché report. Certainly like to have that, which we don't. And then list of witnesses. We don't have that either. So anyway, Susan, are you up for reading tonight? I know you had to work, but
You bet, Jack. Sure.
okay. Well, you want to be Mr. Kelly?
Sure.
And Kay, would you like to be Mr. Nicholson here? I mean, Mr. Conrad. This is Larry
Yes.
Conrad.
Okay, sounds good.
Absolutely. So, all right. Unless somebody has something else to bring up, talk about. Let me check the live chat here right quick. We got we've got several in. I see Duke and Pete, Gloria, Mark Kaz, Colette, Cher. There's Cherie in chat, True Crime Fangirl, Neighbor, Passive Bear, Sealer 442, and Tony. Tony was the first one in. Woo. So I'm sure we'll pick up a few more as we go. Anyway, before we start, I will say, as always, Glenn and Kelly's driver was to talk about Gregory Allen, to find out who knew about Gregory Allen and when they knew it, and what they knew. And that's been their driver from day one, because of everything that happened in the 85 and afterwards.
Sure.
Yeah. I'd really like to know if Glenn and Kelly found out later on about Gregory Allen getting arrested, charged with that cold case in 91. I'd be really
You
interested
ought to
to
write
find that out.
them.
Yeah, if I had
Write them and ask them.
if I could find an email or something for either one, I would. But I don't have that. I think
Do you know if
Sunshine
they're still
Christina.
practicing?
I don't know that. I kind of doubt it.
Yeah.
They both probably pretty old at this point. But I'm pretty sure Sunshine Christina had an email sometime several years ago, but I never asked her for it. I
do
might
a
be able to
little
find something.
snooping, see if I can
Yeah, I was
find
gonna
something.
say. Yeah, I was gonna see if I could snoop around and find something. I'd really like to know if they found out about Gregory Allen. And that had to be something that was on the state's mind, especially at this point in time, because the arrest warrant for Allen was written a month before these depositions in September of 05. So when did they
Right?
find out it? When and if did they find out about it? And I don't think they knew. I just don't. I'm positive they didn't know at this point in time.
I don't either.
So
But Jack, we never did get to the court case. So, or into court. So they
no,
may have had it. They may have had it. We're going to use it.
or at
I don't know.
minimum, the state was worried they would get it
hmm
between the deposition time and then whatever time moving forward, and that would have
Yeah,
really damaged their case.
I'm guessing how long it took them to actually serve that they kept it pretty darn quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they held that really close to their chest, and very few people knew about it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. All right. I'm not going to hold this up any further. We can get this going. We'll stop, briefly along the way. As always, if there's questions, put them in the chat. I'll try to catch them as we're going through. Put a Q in front of it. If you have any questions or comments, whatever. I'm going to blow this up just a little bit more. Give me just a second here. This is more for me than anyone else. I need, like I said, a new set of eyes. All right, ladies, you can
Yeah, I
begin
could use
whenever.
them.
You can begin whenever you're ready, Susan.
All righty. Mr. Conrad, my name's Walter Kelly. I represent Stephen Avery in this case, and I'm going to have some questions for you today about your involvement in some of those events back in 1985, and maybe on a few things after that. Would you tell me what your occupation is presently?
I retired from the sheriff's department and I operate a business now, my own, a sole proprietor, where I transport expedited freight around the United States and Canada.
When did you retire from the sheriff's department?
June of 2000.
And for how long had you been with the sheriff's department at the time that you retired?
I had a total of 31 and a half years in law enforcement, 4 of which was with the city of Kiel in Manitowoc County, the remainder with the sheriff's department.
So let's see. That would be 27 and a half years with the sheriff's department. And if you retired in 2000, it would be 1973 when you started?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And would you tell me your date of birth and your age, please?
May 4th, 1949, 56 years old.
So you were 52 when you retired?
Yes.
And if you would start at the point in time when you started with the sheriff's department, and tell me the different positions in which you served in the sheriff's department between 1973 and 2000, please.
I started with the sheriff's department on June 15th, 1973 as a deputy sheriff, jailer. When I started, everybody pretty much started in the jail and then moved to other positions. Shortly after I started, they posted the position for detective. One of the requirements was 4 years of full-time law enforcement to apply for the position. I qualified for that because of my prior experience with Kiel, and I applied for it and subsequently was hired and promoted to the rank of detective on August 15th, 1973. I held that position until I retired in June of 2000. Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding.
27
That's
years
a
as a
long
detective.
time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you were a detective in the sheriff's department at the time that Mrs. Burnson was assaulted in July of 1985?
Yes, sir.
All right. At the time that Mrs. Burnson was assaulted, July 29th, 1985, were you familiar with Stephen Avery? You were familiar with Stephen Avery, is that right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, you'd been involved in questioning him in the jail early in January of 1985 in connection with a reckless endangerment involving a woman named Sandra Morris.
Yes.
And in fact, in that questioning, Stephen Avery didn't deny what happened. He told you what happened on that occasion, right?
I don't remember exactly what went on. Well, in fact, I did not even remember interviewing him up until a couple days ago when I saw a transcript of an interview I did with him. Oh, bullshit.
Okay. Actually, let me take you back to that. The arrangements for your deposition today here were made by me with Mr. Nicholson. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. And I take it you and Fred Nicholson are not only formally served together as deputy detectives, but you're friends as well.
Yeah, we're friends, but I mean, we don't socialize together. Well, Fred does a lot of work with computers, or used to, and my computer always breaks, and Fred always fixes it, and I buy him lunch.
Okay. Once you found out that those depositions were going to occur, were arrangements made for you to talk with somebody on the defense side of this case?
Yes, Fred had told me that attorney Amy Boyle was trying to contact me, and he also said that you apparently were going to have to serve a subpoena on me and ask if I would, accept service through the mail. And I just told Fred that I would. And he mentioned that Attorney Doyle would be at his office this past Monday, and if I wanted to show up, I could.
Okay.
So I figured rather than trying to dodge this whole thing, get it over with.
Okay. When you met with Amy Doyle, was Mr. Nicholson present, or was it just you and Amy Doyle?
He was present for most of what we talked about.
Okay. And did you review any documents?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me your best recollection of the documents you reviewed?
I recall a cover sheet document from a complaint from 1983. I believe it was where, can't think of his name now.
Gregory Allen?
Gregory Allen's name was listed as possibly being involved in a matter out in North Carolina. There was no report attached to it. I reviewed briefly a transcript that I had completed with Steve Avery regarding the Morris incident, and I reviewed a document that apparently was from the Justice Department on our interview, or on my interview that I did with the two agents some time ago.
Anything else you remember reviewing?
No?
Speaking of the Morris matter that you just mentioned, did you know Bill Morris?
Well, I knew who he was. I believe he was a reserve deputy on the sheriff's department at the time of that incident.
At the time that you interviewed Steve Avery, did you have, at or about that time, did you have any conversations with Bill Morris about what had happened to his wife?
I don't know.
I'm going to show you. Well, let's mark this. Mr. Conrad, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 141 and ask you if that's the covering letter and the subpoena that you received for your testimony today, or a copy thereof, rather.
Yes, sir.
The subpoena itself requests the production of certain documents. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did you find any documents that would respond to that request?
No, sir.
Do you have any documents from when you were a detective in the sheriff's department that concerns either Gregory Allen or Stephen Avery or the Penny Burnson matter?
No.
Okay. Did you keep any press clippings about that?
No.
A little while ago, you told us that you were familiar with Steve Avery at the time of the assault on Mrs. Burnson. You were also familiar with Gregory Allen at that time as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And your familiarity with Gregory Allen arose out of certain things that occurred in the latter part of 1983. Is that right?
I was familiar with his name, not him personally. I don't think I'd ever spoken with him.
Okay. But you knew about him as a result of what you had come to understand that he was accused of doing in certain other cases.
Yes.
Okay. Mark that as 142. I'm going to show you what's been marked, Mr. Conrad, as Exhibit 142, and ask you to take a moment with that. A little while ago, you testified about a criminal matter in 1983 involving Gregory Allen. First of all, have you seen the Exhibit 142 before?
No.
Okay. We were going to go off the record for a minute, and you can take your time and read it.
Reporter off the record for looks like a minute back on the record.
Have you finished your review of Exhibit 142?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware of this case that's represented by this criminal complaint at the time that it was ongoing?
No.
Do you know who Don Juplin from the Two Rivers Police Department?
Yes.
Okay. In the latter part of 1983, did you ever have any conversations with John Juplin about Gregory Allen?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Did you have any conversations with Dennis Vogel about this case involving Gregory Allen that's represented in Exhibit 142?
Not that I recall.
And do you know Ken Meyer?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever have any conversation in the latter part of 1983 with Ken Meyer about this case involving Gregory Allen?
Not that I recall.
This document indicates that it was filed with the clerk of Circuit Court in Manitowoc County in September of 1983. Do you see that?
Yes.
Were you knowledgeable of Gregory Allen at that time, or did your knowledge of him arise after this time?
I honestly don't know.
Okay. Let's mark that as 143, please. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Conrad 143. It's a several-page document. I'm going to, again, we'll go off the record and take your time and look through that.
Off the record for 2 minutes, back on the record.
Mr. Conrad, have you had the opportunity to review Exhibit 143?
Yes, sir.
And what is it?
Well, it's a copy of a sheriff's department complaint where a search warrant was executed at the residence of Gregory Allen and Joanne Littersky.
And do you know who Joanne Littersky is?
No.
In the upper right-hand corner of the first page of Exhibit 143, it indicates that you were assigned to this matter. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right. But then over on the details section, it says that Captain Bells obtained a search warrant for the above residence. Do you see that?
Yes.
Well, first of all, prior to my giving you this document, Exhibit 143, had you seen it before today?
Probably back in 1983, because I recognize printing as my printing.
But you did not see it when you reviewed documents with Ms. Doyle a couple days ago?
No.
Okay. There's a stamp on the front of this document. Quote, not for press reliefs, without authorization from sheriff, end quote. And then it has your signature. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they must have used that a lot if they needed a stamp for it.
Thinking the same thing.
Wow. Did the sheriff tell you that he did not want this document to be released to the press and that you should so indicate on it?
No.
How was the decision made to stamp the document with that stamp?
As far as I recall, pretty many or almost all the complaints that the Detective Bureau worked on were stamped like that. Oh my God. Wow.
Are you confident of that fact?
Not 100%.
Okay. Are there instances that you're aware of when you worked on complaints that they were not stamped with this stamp?
Sure.
Is it your testimony that it was a matter of custom and practice that complaints should be stamped with this stamp?
Yes, and that pretty much, as I recall, was the administrators of the department, my boss and above. When they would see that, or the news media would see that, they would have certain people they would speak to without just generally going through the report and taking out what they wanted and writing a story on it.
Yeah, let's stop right here just for a second. And, I'm going to have to look as to when the open records, or, it used to be called Sunshine Law or whatever, but, the open records thing became a thing with the federal government first, and then various states started adopting their own version of that. And I can't remember exactly when it came into Wisconsin, but it was long before this. I know it was. I won't say decades, but certainly several years. So that's interesting that they would have a stamp on there. If anybody requested that record, it would have to. I mean, typically, in Wisconsin, the sheriff is the final say. He is the open records holder for that county. I don't like that policy, but it is what it is. So I found that really interesting.
The Wisconsin Open Records Law, which ensures public access to government records at all levels, was first enacted into law in 1982.
See?
So
Yep.
before this.
Must be because Sarah didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
Or if he did, he didn't read it, right?
Or he didn't care.
No, didn't care. Yeah,
Ignored
that's right.
it.
Yeah. Yep. It's like, I'll do what I want, and that's what he did anyway. So, okay. I just wanted to add that in. You can just whenever you're ready, Susan. You guys can go ahead.
Okay. Do you remember whether or not anybody in particular told you that they wanted this to be not available for the press? This particular matter, Exhibit 143.
I do not.
Do you remember when this was put on?
Well, that was something that I normally would put on a complaint at the very same time that I filled out all the other writing on the top.
So, as I understand that, if we look at the date stamp on this document on the first page, it would be about the middle of November of 1983.
Yes, sir.
But that's your practice you've described. You don't actually recall when you put this on specifically in this instance.
I do not.
Okay. Now, do you remember executing this search warrant with Captain Bells?
No.
Do you recall having any face-to-face contact with Gregory Allen or Joanne Latursky in connection with this search warrant?
No.
Do you remember having any conversations with Captain Bells about the execution of this search warrant?
No.
Do you recall there being any relationship between whatever it is that you knew about Gregory Allen in connection with this search warrant, Exhibit 143, and anything contained in Exhibit 142?
No.
I just want to follow up on that one a little bit. Do you know whether or not when the search warrant that's represented by Exhibit 143 was executed, you had prior knowledge from any source within the department, whether Captain Bells or anybody else, that there was this previous criminal complaint pending against Mr. Allen?
I don't know.
It would be fair, however, to say that in 1985, when Mrs. Burnson was attacked, you at least had had the experience that is represented in Exhibit 143, specifically with Gregory Allen.
Object to the form.
You can answer.
Yes.
And you may or may not have had some experience with Gregory Allen in connection with the matter set forth in Exhibit 142. You simply don't remember one way or the other about that.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 144. Ask you to take a moment. Actually, before I ask you that, let me just check with you. To your eye, is Exhibit 144 a document that you did review with Ms. Doyle a couple days ago?
The only part of this multiple page document that I saw was a photocopy of the top sheet.
Okay, then we're going to go off the record, and I'm going to ask you to take whatever time you need to review the entire document.
Off the record for 4 minutes, back on the record.
Mr. Conrad, have you had the opportunity to examine Exhibit 144?
Yes.
And I notice again in the upper right-hand corner, you're the assigned detective in this case. Is that right?
Yes, that would indicate I was the one that got the information and started the complaint.
Okay. And I just want to ask you a couple of questions about the form of this document. In the lower right-hand corner, there's a case number. And correct me if I'm wrong, I read it as S83-07809. Do you read it the same way?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you go over to the second page, I don't see any indication of that same case number on the second page. Do you?
No.
In the form as you examine it, I notice that the numbering proceeds to item 39 at the bottom of the first page, and then it appears to pick up at 45 at the top of the second page.
Yeah, there's something missing off this page.
Okay, and
Top part.
well, maybe we're wrong about that. Let's go across the bottom of the first page. It looks like 39 on the left-hand side is the code. 40 are their names. 41 is the date of birth. 42 is the address. And 43 is telephone numbers. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so all we need to find now is 44. I guess my question to you is, given your familiarity with these forms, is the second page of Exhibit 144 a continuation from the first page of Exhibit 144?
I would say it is. This is probably one of the older complaints, and I don't remember the format.
Okay.
But anything, if you follow through from 35 and then through 43, and then 44 not being there, and 45 and 46, it looks like to me that was more the UCR crime reporting stuff that they used.
Okay.
Didn't have an awful lot to do with what the cops actually worked on.
Okay. And then it continues on the bottom of the second page through 53, quote unquote, file approval. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now you go over to the third page of the exhibit, and unlike the second page, it is captioned at the top, County Sheriff's, Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department follow-up report. Do you see that?
Yes.
And it's got the same case number as the first page, S83-07809, right?
Yes.
But it's marked page 2. Do you see that in the upper right-hand corner?
I think I'm right on this, but I'm not sure. I think that the first two documents, page 1 and page 2, well, page 2 not having a number, was all one form a while back.
Okay.
And I think it was much more efficient for the secretaries and the staff to use. The sheets like this for follow-up reports, where these I think were uniform reports with the state or something to do with record keeping, I believe.
So your judgment, based on what you knew at the time about how these documents were used in the department, is that page 3 of Exhibit 144 is a continuation of pages 1 and 2?
Yeah. Yes.
And if you look at the date sequence, starting at the top of page 2, it starts on December 7th, and it runs through to the top of page 3 to December 15th, and so forth. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, having read this, I'm going to just ask you a few questions. It appears to me, and I'll check this out with you, that you were assigned to take a statement from an inmate in the Manitowoc County Jail who wanted to provide information to your department about Gregory Allen.
Yes, sir.
And I noticed that some of the information that's provided has to do with the fact that Gregory Allen may have been involved with narcotics.
Yes.
And am I right that in 1983, a large portion of your work as a detective was as a narcotics detective?
Yes.
Okay. And are you the person who, in fact, did take these statements from Mr. Flick about Gregory Allen and then followed up on them?
Yes.
All right. And that's true all the way through the information that's on page 3?
Yes, other than one edition.
But that one edition is dated in 1985, right?
Right. That's
Okay. That's at the bottom of the
years later.
third page, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Up to that, that is to say, everything through the end of December of 1983 is information that you obtained in connection with what this jail inmate initially told you.
Yes.
What did you find out in substance about Gregory Allen as a result of your follow-up?
That he was involved in an incident where he was a suspect, but apparently was never charged.
And that incident involved a possible homicide in North Carolina. Is that right?
Yes.
And did you also find out that in North Carolina, as a result of the experience that the police had had with him there, he was considered to be a dangerous individual?
Yes.
Okay, now let's go to the entry that we talked about. There's a last entry on this follow-up report dated 2/06/85. Do you see that?
Yes.
And it indicates that this report, a copy of this report, was made for Detective Bergner of the Manitowoc Police Department. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did you know Tom Bergner at the time?
Yes.
How long did you know him as of the early part of 85?
12, 14 years probably.
Okay. Had you worked with him cooperatively on various criminal cases? He in his capacity as a detective with the city department, and you in your capacity as a detective with the sheriff's department.
Yes.
Okay. Could you estimate for us about the number of cases that you worked on with Tom Bergner over that 12-year period of time?
I don't think it was that many that we actually worked on together.
Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, we exchanged information, had coffee together, things like that. But I don't recall when Rich Bray was promoted to captain of detectives and Tom Bergner took over as their main narcotics enforcement officer for the city. But that's at that point, that's when I really started working with Tom very closely.
Okay.
I don't recall that day though, or that date.
Do you remember whether it was before Miss Bernston was assaulted in July of 85?
No, I don't.
There's an entry. After this last entry on the third page of Exhibit 144, there's a name. There appears initials and a name. S.A. Schroeder. Do you see that?
Yes.
Who is that person, if you know?
That would be Shelley Schroeder.
All right. Man or a woman?
Woman. Current name is Braun. She's a dispatcher. And as Braun. As this is set up with the way the addition is on there, Detective Bergner, I'm assuming, called the sheriff's department and asked for a copy of our in-house complaint. That request usually came into the dispatch center. They would recover a copy of it and make a notation that someone requested it and that they forwarded it. That's why her name would be on there.
Prior to February 6th of 1985, had you had any conversations with Tom Bergner telling him what you knew about Greg Allen? That would be the reason for why he would call over to your department and ask for this report?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you know of any other reason than having obtained the information from you that would cause Tom Bergner to know about this report and ask for it in 1985 when he did?
Bascom, object to form.
I know the city police were working on Greg Allen as a suspect in window peeping or home invasions or something like that. And I know there was a time period that they had him surveilled. I don't know if this is the same time period, though.
Okay. How do you know what you knew about that? How did you find out about that information?
I think it was generally things we talked about when we worked together so much on surveillances and things. The fact that Allen had this past with this type of a violent history, and I recall Allen at some point got arrested in the city for fighting with the city cops, drilling some hole in viewing women in a dressing room and stuff. And I mean, that was way above and beyond the unique stuff that we usually deal with all the time. So that he was kind of somebody you talked about.
When you just answered, you said you knew it was something that, quote unquote, we talked about amongst us, referring to, I think, some city people or some county people. Can you tell me who the we is that you were referring to, who you would talk about this stuff involving Gregory Allen?
Oh, myself and Tom Bergner, we would work together many times on a daily basis on drug surveillances and stuff. And it gets pretty boring in the middle of the night. You talk about a lot of different things and incidences from your department. It's just an information sharing thing.
In connection with the surveillance that the Manitowoc City Department was doing of Greg Allen, do you remember Tom Bergner telling you in the summer of 1985 that he was very concerned because Allen was escalating his behavior? He was becoming more dangerous in Bergner's view.
No.
Okay. Did you ever talk in the summer of 1985 with Rich Bray about what you'd heard from Tom Bergner concerning Gregory Allen?
I don't recall if I did or not.
When you and Bergner talked about Allen and these behaviors that you've described, did you convey to Bergner the information that you had gotten from Mr. Flick and the North Carolina authorities about the kind of guy that Allen was?
I do not recall.
Do you think in the ordinary course, if you knew that Bergner and his compatriots in the Manitowoc City Department were surveilling Allen, and you knew about this information that you had from the North Carolina police about Allen's dangerousness, that is something that you would have talked to Bergner about?
Covelli and Bascom, object to the form.
If it came up. Oh, I'm sorry.
If it came up, I certainly would have. We shared joint records at that time, I believe, and all Tom Bergner would have had to do was type Alan's name in, and he would have known the sheriff's department had this information.
Okay. I'm talking more, I'm thinking more in the lines that if Bergner had let you know that he was surveilling Greg Allen, you would have given him a heads up about Greg Allen's dangerousness, just as a matter of police-to-police precaution, knowing what you knew about how dangerous Allen was.
Object to the form, Cavelli. Object to the form.
If the subject came up, I would have told him.
Okay. Let's mark this. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Conrad 145 and ask you if that is the taped interview that you had with Steve Avery in early January of 1985 when he was arrested for having endangered Sandra Morris.
Yes.
When Steve Avery, first of all, let me back up a little bit. Were you contacted by Bill Beck on the evening of July 29 when Mrs. Burnson had been assaulted that day in 1985 and asked to come to the hospital?
No.
When did you first find out about what had happened to Miss Burnson? On the evening of July 29, or in the afternoon or on into the evening of July 29th, 1985?
I don't recall. I'm guessing it probably was when I reported to duty the next time.
And do you remember when that was?
No.
By the time you reported to duty, had Stephen Avery already been arrested?
I believe he was.
Okay. From whom did you first, from whatever source of information you heard it, from whom did you first find out about what Steve Avery was arrested for?
I would guess Captain Bell's.
Why would you guess Captain Bell's?
Because he was pretty mad at us for not being able to come in. Apparently, they were trying to get a hold of detectives, but back in those days, cell phones and pagers didn't exist on the sheriff's department, and they couldn't find a detective to come in, and I know he was pretty upset about that.
I'm going to ask to go off the record for just a moment. There's something I want to check here. I'll be right back with you.
Off the record for 1 minute, back on the record.
Mr. Conrad, we took the deposition of Bill Beck in this case a little while back in the summer on July 13th, and I'm going to read certain testimony to you and then ask a follow-up question about it. This was me asking him questions and him answering. Mr. Kelly, page 68, counsel of the transcript. Question. Between the first and second conversation with dispatch, did you talk to anybody else? Answer. Yes, 2 detectives. I believe it was 2 detectives called in. One was Detective Kalanzik, and the other was Detective Conrad. I think those were the 2 that called in. Question. That would be Al Kalanzik and Larry Conrad? Answer. Correct. Question. And did you ask them to come to the hospital? Answer. Yes, I did. Are you still pretty solid on the fact that you did not talk with Bill Beck that night when Mrs. Burnson, of the day that Mrs. Burnson was assaulted?
I'm 100% sure I didn't.
Okay, so you think he's mistaken in his identity as one of the 2 detectives?
Yes.
You do know that the other detective was Al Kalanzik, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In fact, you had conversations with Kalanzik about what happened to him when he went to the hospital that evening and what he did with the sheriff that evening.
If I had, I don't understand your question you're asking me.
You had conversations after the evening of July 29th, 1985, with Al Kalancic about him going into the hospital and what happened with him when he went in, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. What's your best recollection of what Al Kalancic told you happened to him when he went to the hospital?
He got yelled at and eventually suspended.
By whom?
The sheriff.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. Did he tell you anything more about what happened in that regard?
Well, in a nutshell, Al said that he got there, as I recall. He got there and apparently he was late. The sheriff was very upset with him. Jean Couchet, the chief deputy, was there, and something about he asked what he was supposed to do, and he was told that there wasn't much left for him to do and he could go home.
Okay. And do you remember whether he told you if he did go home?
I don't know.
Did he have any discussions with you about either the composite drawing that was done that evening or the photo array that was done with Mrs. Burnson?
No.
Okay. On the days that followed, July 29th, were you requested by the sheriff to talk to various people who might have been suspects in the assault on Mrs. Burnson?
I don't know if they all were requests from the sheriff, but it would have either been the sheriff or Don Bells.
Okay. Was the sheriff conducting the investigation? Was he the lead on the investigation?
I don't know if you could call him the lead. I would say that he was definitely the one in charge of it. I took my direction from Don Bells, the captain.
But unlike the normal situation where Bells was running the investigation, in this particular instance, it was the sheriff who was in charge of the investigation, I think, was the phrase you used.
I always got that impression.
Okay. Was that something that was being talked about between and amongst you detectives?
Yeah, I think we questioned why it was being done like that.
And were one or more of you, including yourself, concerned about the speed with which the investigation had moved to focus on Steve Avery in your conversations?
Well, not with me, it wasn't.
Okay. Did you hear that from any of the other detectives?
Well, I believe Don Bells talked about the fact that it was moving along rapidly, but to say he did, I do not recall a specific event where he complained about it to me personally or to the rest of the guys in the bureau.
You testified earlier today that when he did see you on the following day, Bells was upset with you because they couldn't locate you on the night before, right?
Well, I think he was upset over the fact the entire detective bureau was unavailable other than one guy. And they got a hold of him eventually, but quite late or later on after they really needed him.
And Bells told you that part of the being upset was that the sheriff was upset with him about it?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And Bells told you that he didn't like the fact that, unlike almost all other cases, the sheriff was running this investigation instead of him running it.
Well, he never told me that.
He did not? No words to that effect? Anything like that?
I think Don questioned the fact of why the case was being handled the way it was as far as who's in charge. Don was the head of the detective bureau, and I think he wondered why the sheriff was handling this investigation. That was something between him and the old man. I don't know what went on. And I can only guess, and it probably was not real. Don wasn't happy about it.
Okay.
Reporter changing tapes. Go ahead.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 146. Ask you to take a moment and look at that. Bates 5272 is from Exhibit 18, the Attorney General's exhibits.
Okay.
Are we still on the record?
Yes.
Mr. Conrad, do you recognize that document?
Yes.
What is it?
It's page 17 of Sheriff's Complaint S84-04851.
And do you recall whether that's the Sheriff's Department incident report involving the assault of Mrs. Burnson?
Well, this must be. There must be a typo on the top of this because it's S84, but the rest of the document is showing 85 editions.
Okay.
I don't know if this is the Bernstein complaint. I'm guessing it is.
Okay. It indicates that you were requested by the sheriff to speak with a possible suspect, right? Interview a possible suspect.
Not a suspect. I think that the sheriff wanted me to speak with the Klein regarding information he might have about Steve Avery.
Okay. Do you remember talking to Mr. Klein?
No, I do not.
All right. Do you remember whether or not you interviewed any other persons as possible suspects in the sexual assault of Mrs. Burnson?
I recall interviewing a fellow by the name of Greg Mante. Mante? I don't know.
Who initiated the request that that interview be conducted?
I did.
Why did you do so?
I saw the composite that Jean Couchet had made, and Greg Manthe was known to me, also lived across the street in a halfway house.
Across the street from...
With the sheriff's department. And I believe I talked to Bells, asked him if it was, or maybe the sheriff, I'm not sure which one, and asked if it was okay to talk to Manthe regarding this.
You thought that Manthe looked like the guy in the composite. Is that right?
That he had similar appearances, yes.
And you did, in fact, then go and see him.
Yes.
And you did interview him?
Yes.
And you did talk with him about whether or not he could account for himself on the afternoon and evening of the 29th of July?
Yes.
And what did you find out?
I believe he was alibied.
Okay. So you were not satisfied from the composite, that the composite necessarily looked like Stephen Avery, whom you also knew?
No, that was just me. I mean, I always look beyond and I don't know what the reason was other than the fact that there was a similar appearance.
So did you say you always looked beyond that? Beyond what?
Well, to me, everything isn't black and white as a detective. I mean, you always have to look for, take a look at the whole picture. And if to me, in my mind, Manthe was similar in physical appearance, I wanted to make sure that he wasn't, one of the parties or party responsible.
Did you think Greg Allen was similar in appearance?
No, Greg Allen's name never came up as far as to me. I had no recollection of Greg Allen in a physical appearance relating to this case.
Have you ever seen Greg Allen before July 29th, 1985?
I probably did.
In what respect did you see him?
I don't remember if I physically saw him or if I saw a picture of him. I just don't remember.
Well, when you bring up seeing a picture of him, what picture would you have seen of him at that time?
If they did a search warrant when the search warrant was done on his home, I don't know if he was arrested at that time or if Two Rivers had arrested him on that complaint. There would have been a sheriff's department photo, maybe. I don't know.
So, in terms of a possible picture of Greg Allen, those would be, you were referring just now when you answered to the December 83 search warrant and the September 1983 complaint.
If he would have been arrested relating to a search warrant, he would have been booked into the jail. There would have been a photograph.
And that's the photo you would have seen?
Right. Or if Two Rivers would have arrested him back in 83 for that incident that you showed me, he would have been booked into the county jail. There would have been a photograph of that.
Okay. But you're still telling us you did see the composite and you thought the composite was such that it may not have been Stephen Avery. It may have been Mr. Manthe. And you wanted to follow up on that?
Well, I knew Manthe to have some weird sexual issues.
Mm-hmm.
And the suspect, I recall, had a beard. Manthe had a beard. It was something that I brought up to my boss, and he said go for it.
You also knew Greg Allen had a weird sexual history, right?
Bascom, I object to the form.
You can answer.
Reviewing these complaints, yes.
Well, more than that. Talking with Bergner, who was surveilling Gregory Allen at the time.
Cabelli, objection. Bascom, object to the form.
You can answer.
Bascom, vague as to the time.
Foundation also. But go ahead, sir.
Yes.
Okay, now, do you remember whether you talked to any other possible suspects than Manthe, and if Mr. Klein was a suspect to Klein?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you remember whether you were assigned to do anything else in the case by Sheriff Kasurek?
I had to do something related to verifying a receipt, I believe, at Shopco in Green Bay.
Okay, let's mark this.
I recall that.
Show you what's been marked as Exhibit 147. Sorry for the way it copied out, but my question is going to be, do you recognize the handwriting?
Looks like Jean Couchet, but I'm not sure.
Okay, let's mark this. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 148. Ask you to take a moment. We can go off the record if you'd like, because it's not the clearest copy, and examine that. And I'll tell you why we're on the record. It appears to be a listing of possible witnesses in the case that you and Jean Couchet talked to. I'm just going to ask you some questions about that.
Off the record for 2 minutes, back on the record.
Looking at Exhibit 148, Mr. Conrad, do you recall conducting interviews of potential witnesses in the case with Jean Couchet?
I recall it only from reviewing this report.
You don't have any independent recollection?
No.
All right. Even though you've reviewed the report, has the report caused you to recall anything more? I'll withdraw the question. Did you report did the report refresh your recollection about talking with witnesses for the trial?
Yes.
Okay, tell me what you remember.
I believe that in summary, these were just individuals that were subpoenaed, and as a standard in these type of matters, our boss had us talk to all these folks prior to the trial to see if they would tell us what they were going to testify about.
Jeez. Okay, and then your boss
Well,
requested you. Yeah, that's.
go ahead. And I'll go ahead and then I'll comment. Finish that question.
No, go ahead and comment, Jack.
Well, if the sheriff's having them going to people to find out what they're going to say at trial for their testimony, that's shady as hell.
Don't they have to
why the
list
hell is
it
the
on
sheriff doing that?
on a witness list? Don't they have to list like a synopsis of what they will testify about, though?
I don't think so. I think that's generally covered in the preliminary, the prelim hearings, pretrial stuff.
Huh. Okay.
But I guess each state can vary. I don't know. Maybe Cherie has a better answer. Cherie?
Well, I'm not sure about Wisconsin, but they kind of had little summaries, but maybe not exactly, the details and stuff. Is that what you mean, Kay?
Yeah, what I've seen in the cases that I'm following, it's just a summary. But I've also seen the other side challenge and say that's not what this person was supposed to be testifying about. That just
Gotcha.
happened recently with Giger crying because Giger was crying because
he's a crybaby.
Because they were outfoxing him, and so he decided to cry about that.
He didn't like it. Oh,
he did not like it.
I think that would be intimidating, especially with Kasurik going, like, even if he didn't exactly say the words, like, it's kind of like a message. I've got my eye on you. You better watch what you say.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our boss had us talk to all these folks prior to the trial to see if they would tell us what they were going to testify about it. Wow, I mean, to me that's
these are
the
detectives.
Coming from the prosecutor's office. Well, I would think so, because
you would think,
you would want to prepare for your any rebuttal witnesses you would want to put up for that person. You would think they would already know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't want to read too much into it. This sounds shady to me, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, we are talking about Kasurik here.
We are.
Well, that's
true.
Having those conversations always gives them the opportunity to coach.
That too.
Yeah.
And Sheriff call him and say, "You sure you want to talk about this in open court?" I don't know. That sounds weird.
You might want to read that.
Yeah, shut the hell up. Don't talk about that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Just a second here. I want to see. I've been trying to flip back and forth to see if there's any questions, and there's one. Double D says, "Are these depositions on video?" They are. We've only got a few clips that. No. They're available for purchase from MagnaScript, but you're going to have to sell a kidney and probably a leg. They wanted a lot of money. He may be willing to deal better now. I really don't know, but they are available on video.
I bet they don't have shit on Oklahoma's prices.
He was pretty bad. Okay, he really was terrible with Banana Man and Julie way back when we were trying to make a deal. They were trying to make a deal to get just these depositions that we got. I mean, the original price that he quoted them was completely unreachable. It was like 8,000. I know that when we originally looked at getting them, he wanted like $10,000. This was years ago when we found out about the depositions.
And this is not the state; it's an independent company.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Magnuscript.
You would think if he works for the state that's for depositions. You said though.
Right. These are civil depositions. These are
okay.
Glenn and Kelly hired Magnuscript to record it, to video it, and then to convert into transcripts, help mark the exhibits, and the whole package. So they were paid whatever they contracted with Glenn and Kelly, and then but he retained the copyright. He retained this copyright status.
Ridiculous what they want.
It really is. Like I said, originally back
making a simple copy. All the work is done already.
And he's already been paid.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I feel pretty positive this was 2017, 2018 when they were first contacted. He wanted an outrageous price, and certainly we couldn't raise that kind of money to get them. So then, moving forward, when Banana Man and Julie came up with this idea to try again, because Banana Man wasn't involved the first time. I don't remember who all was involved. It was decided, we would try to raise money, get this guy to deal. But, even the first time I think he asked for like $6,000 or $7,000 the first time. And Banana Man said, that's not going to happen. And it's not. It's not going to happen. So if you're not willing to come off that, then we might as well not talk. And I guess, communication continued, but he still dicked him around. I read the emails. That guy was horrible.
Wow.
And they ended up getting just a few of them, right?
No. This was when we got all the transcripts.
Oh, the transcripts. That's right.
Yeah. The video clips,
not videos.
For Rat got, and then there was more, or there were actually, I think there was maybe one or two more that came out during the Colburn v. Netflix lawsuit that got publicized. I think there was, I want to say 6 or 7 clips from that were shared, that got put into as exhibits. So, but as far as the full video, they exist if you're willing to pay. And it'd be hard to say what he'd ask for now. What's going on? Hey, what's going on? I must have missed something with Mose. What's going on?
I have no idea. I haven't seen him in a long time.
He posted up above that he had a bypass in his leg and had to have a toe removed, I think. But he said everything went well and he should be home by tomorrow night, I think. Hey. Yeah, right there.
Best wishes there, Mose. Hope you get through that and back out kicking ass as soon as you can.
4th bypass.
That's well, these days, they've got that horse stuff down pretty damn slick. Anyway, all right. Hey, Charlotte Dowling. Yeah, hey, Charlotte Dowling. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, let's continue on. Line 25.
Oh, sorry, Jack. I thought you were looking for the line.
No, I had to highlight it at the very top so I didn't lose my place.
Okay. And then your boss requested you and Couchet to go and talk to them?
Yes.
And I noticed that the dates here are in November and December of 1985. Do you see that?
Yes.
At that time, did you have a personal relationship with Brenda Peterson, then called Brenda Gousset? I believe it is, or Guzzi? Goozy.
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 Yes.
I was reading yours and mine. We had her in for testimony, and she said that you and she had an on-again, off-again personal relationship between 1984 and 1986. Does that sound about right to you?
Yes.
Okay. In the course of these proceedings, as you were involved with them, did you have any occasion to hear from Brenda Goosey that she did not believe that Stephen Avery had assaulted Mrs. Burnson, but rather that Gregory Allen had done so?
No.
Did you ever talk about the Penny Burnson assault with Brenda Goosey?
I don't recall talking to Brenda about this case at all.
Okay. Have you talked with Ms. Goosey within the last year?
I think the last time I saw her and Keith, her husband, was at Cops. My wife and I were shopping and we ran into them and, just general conversation. But
And when was that?
where we personally met,
Yeah.
I would say 6 months ago
And where was that?
at the Cops department store in Manitowoc.
Okay. Did you talk about this lawsuit at all?
Never.
Did you talk about the Stephen Avery case at all?
Never.
Prior to that conversation that you had with Ms. Goosey, did you have any other conversations with her about this case?
No.
Did you know today when you came in here to testify that she had previously testified?
I did not.
Do you know Leroy Bilkey?
Yes.
Do you consider him a friend?
No.
Do you get along with him?
I would say professionally, yes. Other than that, he and I, we were both police officers, but we do not travel in the same circles.
Do you remember having a conversation? That's interesting. Do you remember having a conversation with Leroy Bilkey about a conversation he had with Don Bells when he brought to Bells information about the Penny Burnson assault and how Bells reacted to it?
No.
Okay. Did you ever talk with Bells about any conversation he had had with Bilkey about the Stephen Avery case?
No.
When this case was being prepared and tried, did you ever talk to Jim Gospodarek about it?
I don't think Jim was a detective anymore. It might have been something that was discussed because Jim and I were pretty close friends, but I have no recollection of Jim and I having any specific conversations about the Avery case.
Do you remember whether or not after the verdict came in, Jim Gospodarek telling you that they convicted the wrong guy?
Jim never told me that.
Okay. Did Jim ever tell you that he was going to go talk to Leo Jadowski about what had happened in the trial of Stephen Avery?
No.
Did Leo Jadowski ever talk with you about how Jim Gospodarek felt about the trial of Stephen Avery?
Yes.
What did Leo tell you about that?
I saw Leo shortly after he gave his deposition.
Ah.
I had not seen Leo probably in 2 years prior to that. And he was standing outside his store on 10th Street, and I happened to be driving past, and I beeped. And I knew his wife was quite ill, and I pulled over and we had a short conversation. Knowing Leo and the way he likes to brag about things, he had to tell us, everybody that was there. I mean, there was only one other customer in the store, but he's telling everybody about how he had testified and teasing the sheriff about how he was going to be in trouble because
Gospoderic.
Thank you. Gospoderic had blown the whistle and all that kind of stuff. That was the first time that I had heard that conversation took place. That was a weird
Did you
answer.
say anything to Leo? Yeah. Did you say anything to Leo on the occasion when he related this information either to you or in your presence?
I just told him that was the first I heard of it.
Okay. Relative to John Gospoderic, would you say that you were closer to Jim than Leo was? Or that Leo was closer to Jim than you were? Or that you just both had whatever relationships you had with him?
I don't know who was closer. Jim and Leo had been friends for a long, long time. That I know. Jim and I, our sons were in the same school, same grade. We fished together occasionally. That was our relationship, you know. Socially, a couple times a year, we'd go out together. What Jim's relationship with Leo and his wife were, I don't know.
Do you believe Jadowski's recitation of what Gospoderic told him about the trial?
Covelli objection. Bascom object to the form.
And its outcome?
Covelli objection to the confidence of the witness.
You can answer. That's weird. Objection.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Competence. Like he's not competent to answer if...
Maybe Cherie can
If
help
you
us out
believe
with
Jadowski's
I think, well,
recitation about Gospoderic.
in legal speak with the competence, it's not so much like he's not smart enough, but like he doesn't think he has the authority to talk on that subject, maybe.
Okay.
That
He is
makes
asking
sense.
about what somebody else said.
Yeah. So he says
Okay. You can answer.
no. Oh,
Form, I was going to say, but okay.
sorry. I'm sorry. Jeez.
Okay, tell me why.
Jim Gospoderic, I think, would have stood on his own 2 feet, and went directly to the sheriff and complained if he thought something was wrong. And the way Leo related it to me, Jim was afraid to say something. Jim never was afraid to say anything as far as I was concerned. His opinion was respected, and why he would have to go to Leo and say something, I don't know.
Do you have an opinion about why Leo would say such a thing, since you think it not to be true?
Bascom object to the form.
I don't know.
If you were us and you were trying to sort out whether Jim Gospoderic had said that, knowing that he's now deceased, is there any other person that you would go to talk to about that?
In my opinion, if Jim Gospoderic thought that something was wrong, he would have went to the sheriff himself. He would have went to the district attorney.
Well, perhaps that's why he's dead.
Could be.
Just kidding. So,
No, you're not.
those are two people. Sort of, yeah. So, those are two people you think we should talk to about whether Jim Gospoderic spoke to them about his thoughts on this?
That's my opinion, that if Jim thought something was wrong, he would have told those people.
Okay.
Not gone to somebody and say, well, maybe you ought to mention this. Jim was always the type of guy that if he thought something wasn't right, he dealt with it.
Okay. Is there anybody else you think that we should talk to, or you believe that we ought to talk to try and sort out whether what Leo Jadowski has testified he was told by Jen Gospodarek is accurate?
Object to the form of the question. Misstates his testimony.
Is Gospodarek's widow still living?
Yes.
Do you know what her name is?
Diane.
And is her last name still Gospodarek?
Yes.
Do you know where she lives?
I believe she still resides in the home that her and Jim built in Two Rivers.
Has she remarried?
I don't believe so.
Do they have children?
Yes.
Or did they have children? When it became known in September of 2003 that Steve Avery had been exonerated by DNA and Gregory Allen had been implicated, did you talk at all with Sheriff Kasurek?
The only conversation I had with Tom Kasurek about this entire matter was once a month or on a basis like that, whenever the guys can get together. The retired cops will get together and have coffee and breakfast occasionally. Tom Kasurek showed up at one of those. And I just said, "How's the case going?" And he said, "They're in the process of taking depositions." And that was the extent of what Tom and I discussed about this entire matter.
At any time since September of 2003, when the information came out?
Correct.
At any time since the information came out in September of 2003, have you talked to Jean Couchet about this case?
Yes.
How many times would you say?
Probably once or twice.
Let's take the first one. Do you remember where that took place?
Any time that I would have talked to Gene, it would have been at his house. He probably was sitting out in front of his house with his bird on his shoulder. And I'd see him and I'd stop and we'd talk about the case.
Okay. Did you talk with Jean Couchet about Tom Bergner talking to Sheriff Kasurek?
No.
Did you talk with Jean Couchet about what happened at the hospital on the night that Mrs. Burnson was assaulted?
Yes.
Did you talk with Jean Couchet about whether or not he was involved in the photo array that was given to Mrs. Burnson that night?
The whole subject matter around any conversation I had with Gene was around the composite.
Okay.
And I mean, if I could just back up for a second, Gene and I worked together very closely in the Special Investigative Unit. I think it was a year or so after this incident, and his ability to draw and things like that always was a big deal with him. And his honesty and stuff like that. And he was always very concerned about the fact that the victim or anybody else would not be tainted by seeing a photograph or something like that. And anytime he would draw a picture of somebody, a suspect, he emphatically wanted to know that that person had not seen any photographs before he did his drawing. Okay, well, his credibility is complete bullshit to me now, so that fixed it for sure.
Yeah, if he had to bring it up and talk about it, that
he didn't want them to know he had traced it.
Of course not.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
His honesty and stuff like that. Okay, I'm sorry. And that was pretty much the conversation, just what it was back then in 1985. It still was.
So every time you stop by his house, he's like, "I'm honest. I'm honest.
Yeah. I'm honest. And I don't want anyone to see a picture because I'm a great drawer."
Right. The only one and only composite he ever made that was used in a case.
As far as we know, yeah.
Well,
did he
this
do
was
that
a
one?
special.
I know it was his first one.
I'm pretty sure he said that in his deposition, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. Do you know whether Jean Cachet ever did another composite drawing in any case than the composite drawing he did in this case? Do you know?
Yes, he did other drawings.
Do you know what the cases were?
No.
Did you ever see the composite drawing that Jean Cachet did of the person who assaulted Mrs. Burnson in his home?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever see it in his office?
Yeah. Yes. What do you mean? I thought you never saw it.
In
At
his
his home.
Oh, in his home. Okay, catch up, Kate.
In Jean Cachet's home. Yeah. Did he display it in his office? Was it on the wall?
No, not that I recall.
It was. Where did you see it in his office?
Probably on his very messy desk.
Just lying on the desk?
Well, you have to understand Gene's desk. It looked like a junkyard. I mean, it was terrible. He had papers all over the place. I believe he was given that or asked to have that composite because it was the first one he drew. I think he made that request of a judge somewhere. That's just my recollection. I don't know if that's fact.
When you saw the composite drawing, how many times would you say you saw the composite drawing in his office?
I knew he had it. I would say I probably saw it once.
Okay. Did you ever see any photograph of Stephen Avery at the same time?
No.
Do you know whether or not when he left the department, Jean Cachet took the composite with him?
I don't know.
Do you recall being questioned by Jean Cachet in 1996 concerning what happened in the Stephen Avery case?
I didn't remember it until he brought it up.
When did he bring it up?
That was one of the one or two times that we had a conversation. He said that something about, don't you remember me coming around and audio recording you guys?
And you said,
No.
have you seen that recording? Did you see that recording in your meeting with Ms. Doyle?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what occasioned Mr. Cachet to take that recording from you?
No.
Do you know why it was Mr. Cachet who was doing it?
I would surmise somebody above him asked him to do it.
Now, what's the deal here? Cachet
It's like
questioned him in 96.
Yes, he questioned
recorded
Conrad. It was the one I couldn't think of was this other guy they've been talking about, this Leo Dassey and this Red Nicholson. He interviewed all three of them in '96, and I think we even tried to get those recordings, but I think Sunshine Christina did, and she was told they don't exist.
Well, why would he say that Cachet had taken? Oh, why did he do the interviews? Is that what he was asking?
I think that's what he saw. That's what I'm thinking that he means by that. Not that he took a recording.
Okay, to take that recording from you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where were
that's
we?
what I. Line 17.
When you talked with Mr. Cachet about the composite that he did on the evening of the 29th, did he tell you how it was that he was called to the hospital?
No, all I knew was that he responded to the hospital.
Did he tell you who was there when he got there, other than the sheriff?
I recall him telling me that Judy Dvorak was in the room with Mrs. Burnson.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. Bill Beck, I believe, was at the hospital originally, the shift commander. I don't recall him mentioning anyone else.
Do you remember whether he said anything about Al Kalancic being there? Or did he say anything about Al coming later?
I don't recall him mentioning Kalancic. I know Al went there because Al told me he was there, but I don't recall Gene saying that Al was there.
When he mentioned Judy Dvorak being in the room with Mrs. Burnson, did he say he was in at the same time that they were together?
He didn't tell me the positions of the people.
But it was in the room that Judy Dvorak was with Mrs. Burnson that he did the composite drawing?
I don't know.
Okay. Did he tell you anything about who brought the photographs from the jail over to Sheriff Kasurik that night?
No.
Do you yourself have any knowledge of who brought the photographs from the jail to Sheriff Kasurik?
No, sir.
Have you ever talked with Al Kalancic about that?
Yes.
What did Al tell you he remembered about that, if you recall?
I don't think Al remembered. I think Al was confused about how the photographs ended up there, actually who brought them.
What causes you to say that?
Well, I mean, because he told me he didn't remember or he didn't recall or whatever it was that brought the conversation up.
When did you talk to Mr. Kalancic about that?
That's a long time ago.
Okay. Do you know Vic Beretta?
Yes.
Do you know whether Vic Beretta was on duty in the jail that evening?
No, I don't.
Do you know whether Vic Beretta was the person who took the photograph of Stephen Avery on the evening of July 29?
I don't know.
That's all I've got.
Okay, anyone else?
Okay, that's it. Wow, there's 9 pages of index. Wow. Well, I got to say, I don't know what your all's impression is, but I mean, he's this Conrad guy. And I don't just given some other reports that he did. I mean, he seemed like he was answering pretty straight.
He did.
Probably about as straight as about any of them have been to me.
The one thing that I find odd between him and the copy dated on and off, who was she?
Oh, that was Brenda Peterson. She worked in the DA's office.
Yeah. The one thing I find odd about that is that they never discussed the case at all.
Yeah, that's a little weird to me.
Yeah. I thought it was when we read her deposition also.
I did too. I thought it was really strange.
Maybe they left it, left their work at work.
I don't know. It just seems to me like, both being involved in law enforcement, that it would have, during that time frame especially, I mean, things were, really, the case, that case blew up. The Bernstein case did.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So
why do you, somebody asked, I think it was Double D, like what was, Conrad's role? And I know he was a detective in the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, but why do you think his deposition is so close to the big players? Is it because he had so many relationships with all the different people, or what do you think?
Well, I mean, yeah, personally, yeah, because he'd been there for forever. He knew all of them. And
Touche and Kalancic,
yeah.
and Gospoderic.
Yeah, Gospoderic, Dassey. He knew all of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were all involved, going back to that time frame. So
Doesn't sound like he actually did much work in the case.
no, it doesn't. And I'm just I just don't remember the police reports in the '85 case who all signed off on them and that kind of thing. We've got several. So, but, hello.
Hey guys, I'm gonna jump off. I'm gonna mute for a while. This is Daniel calling.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Give him my love.
Okay.
But yeah, interesting. And I'm gonna have to dig out that report where Cachet interviewed these 3 detectives and refresh myself, because I know we talked about it quite a bit at length on Sunshine Christina's podcast, where we talked about all this. We brought all these depositions in and that report and some other stuff. I remember that. I'm gonna have to dig that out.
I just tried to dig for it too, and I didn't. Probably find it eventually, but I haven't found it yet.
I'm sure it's in the library. I just can't remember that's my problem. I can remember the name of the damn document. So, but I may have another way to find it. I'll try to set aside a little time and see if I can dig it out. So for anyone that's interested, they can look in the description. I'll link it. Anyway, okay. Let's move on to, I'm trying to see if there's any questions while I'm running my mouth here, but I don't really see too much anything. I see Double D ask above here, the sheriff was Tom Pasark. Yeah, back in that time frame. He retired in, when was it, 99, Susan? Cherie, does that sound right? 99?
I couldn't say for sure. It rings a bell right around there, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 99. Somewhere in that, it was definitely that time frame. It may have been 2001. I can't
Here
remember.
I
It
am
was around
talking
that.
to myself. Who are you talking about?
Kasoric, when he retired, was it 99 or 2000? Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there, I think.
Yeah, it may have been
I forget,
01.
actually. Yeah.
Pretty sure Peterson had been there a couple of years when Avery was released. Sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Let's get this other one going. Cherie, can you read?
I can.
Okay. If you want to play Nicholson, Susan, are you okay with continuing on?
I wouldn't mind a break. Do you want to read, Jack?
I can.
Why don't you read it, Kelly?
Sounds good. Yeah, this one's not very long. It's going to be 25 or so pages. So we should be able to get through this one pretty quick. And as you can see, time frame, this was heading into the afternoon of October 13th. So it's going to be the same players, I'm sure. Glenn and Kelly, Covelli, Bascom, Jay and I have got these guys covered, and Stephen Avery, no one else has joined them. So, and then looks like a few exhibits, the subpoena, the incident report with additions, the evidence transmittal, DOJ report. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay. All right, are you ready to start, Cherie?
Yes.
All righty. Line 15. Mr. Nicholson, my name is Walter Kelly. I represent Stephen Avery. I'm going to have some questions for you here today. You and I spoke a few days back about scheduling these depositions. Is that right?
That's correct.
And how are you presently employed?
I'm retired from the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, when did you retire?
In the year 2000, April of 2000.
And how long had you been with the department at that time that you retired?
28 years with the department.
All right. And for what portion of those 28 years were you a detective?
27 and a half.
Wow. So he had 6 months and then boom, got to move to detective. That's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your date of birth and your age, please?
2/17/49 is my date of birth, and I'm 56 years old.
Hold on just a second. What is it, Chris? Chris?
I was looking for the bag.
The what? Oh, sorry about that. Okay. And are you presently employed?
Yes.
And what do you do?
I'm a general manager of a manufacturing facility.
With what company?
Sudinger Sheet Metal.
You're going to have to spell that one.
Suettinger.
Reporter, thank you. And Susan, can you do Covelli and Bascom? Susan may have muted.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I was muted.
No, that's okay. Yeah, if you can grab them when they come up, I'm sure there's not going to be a hell of a lot. So
Okay. Where are we?
17, line 17.
I said Covelli and Bascom.
What page?
Let me back.
5.
Yeah,
Okay.
hold on. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we're right. Yeah, we're right here on what's actually PDF page 6. And he's talked about what company. He said he's working for this sheet metal company. Okay.
Okay. Swettinger.
Yeah. Did you spelled that out, right?
I did.
Okay. Line 17. Would you tell us briefly, starting when you began with the department, what positions you held in the department?
I started as a jailer. After a short stint, I went to patrol, and then I took the interviews and exam for detective, and I was promoted.
And you served as a detective throughout the remainder of your employment at the department.
Correct.
Did all those other exhibits end up back here?
Yeah.
They came around.
Thanks.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 149 and ask you, is that the covering letter and subpoena that was issued to you for today's deposition?
I believe so.
Subpoena calls upon you to produce certain documents. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Do you have any such documents?
No.
Did you maintain any notebooks or memo books of your service as a detective in the sheriff's department?
No.
Did you keep any clippings of the Penny Bernston assault matter?
No.
You were involved in the investigation of the Penny Bernston assault, is that right?
That's correct.
And you were involved in that at the direction of Sheriff Tom Kosoric.
Correct.
Okay, do you recall what you did in connection with the investigation of the Bernston assault?
I took photographs of the area pointed out to me as the scene. I took those from a United States Coast Guard helicopter. I'm also a photographer.
All right. Anything else that you did?
I did a pace at the time it takes to get from an area pointed out to me as the place the incident occurred to a Shopko store in Green Bay.
And what was the purpose in doing that?
To time how long it would take to get from point A to point B.
And why was that being done?
I believe there was an alibi that at the time of the incident, the suspect was shopping in Green Bay.
And so you were trying to account for the time it would have taken to go from the site of where the crime occurred to Green Bay and back.
Just to Green Bay.
Just to Green Bay. Who asked you to do that?
The sheriff.
I believe you told the investigators for the department of Department of Justice that you drove as fast as you could, 20 miles over the speed limit, in order to do that pace off. Is that correct?
Well, it was different speeds. It was 10, 15, 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. Then we had another squad with Judy Dvorak driving exactly the speed limit too.
All right. And who set that up to that pace off in that fashion?
The sheriff.
Did he tell you personally to do it that way?
Yes.
When did that meeting take
Dassey.
place? Yeah. When did that meeting take place? Go ahead.
That took place at the scene.
And was there anybody from the district attorney's office present when the sheriff gave you that assignment?
I don't recall.
After you received Exhibit 149, did you have a conference with Amy Dole about this case?
Correct.
Who was present at that conference?
Amy Doyle, Larry Conrad, and myself.
And were all three of you together throughout the conference?
Yes.
All right. Did you review documents?
Yes.
Did you talk with each other?
Larry and I?
Yeah.
No.
So it was...
Not with regards to documents. We each had our own reports that we were reviewing.
Did you check out each other's memories in the course of the conversation, where one of the other of you would be saying, like, quote, "Oh no," or quote, "Oh no, something else happened. You remember such and such," end quote?
No.
Nothing like that?
No.
Okay, tell me what the documents you remember reviewing.
The police report where I had my additions, a transcript of an interview that Jean Couchet took from me at my home, and a transcript from the court testimony.
Any other documents that you reviewed?
I don't believe so.
Did you review the statement that you gave to the Department of Justice?
Briefly, yes.
Would you mark that, please, Jeff? Reporter,
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. You're going to do that. Okay. Line 8. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 150 and ask you if this is what you meant when you were referring to the additions that you made to the police report.
Yes, it is.
All right. Let's mark this 151.
Aren't we supposed to be under oath, swore in?
Oh, that's right. Good question.
I'm sorry. Let's go off the record. Okay, we're back on the record. I'm going to administer an oath now. Sir, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you have and will give in this deposition is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
Mr. Nicholson. Sorry. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Nicholson, you just raised the question with us, the fact that you had not been sworn in. And I've asked you a number of questions, and you've given a number of answers prior to when you were sworn in. Do you affirm the truth of the testimony that you've given up to that point you were sworn in?
Absolutely.
Now, I'll show you what's been marked as Exhibit 151 and ask you if you can tell me what that is.
I know what this is.
Okay, what is it?
It's an evidence transmittal to the crime lab.
Concerning?
A magazine page bearing hand-printed message.
And what's the date on this?
August 1st, 1985.
And with reference to the last paragraph of Exhibit 150, that is to say this document, does that Exhibit 151 relate to the final paragraph of Exhibit 150?
Yes, it does.
Would you tell me what you recall of that specific instance, why that was being done?
What would you like?
Well, tell me everything you remember of the instance that gave rise to those specific Exhibit 151 and that paragraph in Exhibit 150.
I was also a fingerprint examiner with the department.
Okay.
And I was given I'm going from this report because I don't recall it very well.
All right.
And I've done thousands of fingerprint analyses.
All right.
I was given a document to check for prints. I treated it with ninhydrin spray to develop fingerprints. Several partial prints were developed, at which time I packaged them and transported them to the crime lab.
And these involve fingerprint cards of Stephen Avery, Bruno Frauenfeld, and Gregory Gregory Manthi. Is that right?
That's correct.
Was any match found?
No. The note on Exhibit 151 states no print suitable for ID found.
Do you recall how it was that you were requested to make this fingerprint check with respect to Stephen Avery, Bruno Frauenfeld, and Gregory Manthi?
I did not compare the fingerprints of these individuals to the latents I developed. Once I developed latent fingerprints, I then took them to the crime lab for their expertise.
But you also took fingerprint cards of Avery, Frauenfeld, and Manthi, right?
Yes.
What caused you to select those particular fingerprint cards?
I did not select those. I was given them to take.
By whom?
By my supervisor,
Who was?
Don Belts.
You're sure of that?
Don Belts was my supervisor. I could have been told to take them down there by the sheriff. I don't recall.
Yeah, I bet you were.
So do I. It was the sheriff who was in charge of the Avery investigation and the assault of Penny Bernstein, right?
Correct.
Captain Bells was not in charge of it, contrary to the usual practice. Is that correct?
I think he was involved in supervising the investigation in part.
But the sheriff was in charge of it.
The sheriff was in charge of the investigation, correct.
And you don't remember whether it was Bells or the sheriff who told you to take the Stephen Avery, Bruno Frauenfeld, and Gregory Manthi fingerprint cards?
No, I don't.
Okay.
May I have a drink of water, please?
Sure.
You know a woman named Brenda Peterson?
From the district attorney's office?
Yes.
Yes.
There was a period of time during the investigation and trial of the Penny Bernstein assault matter when she was called Brenda Dassey. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you recall having conversations with her about the Penny Bernstein sexual assault?
No.
Did you have any conversations with Al Kalanzik about the Penny Bernstein sexual assault case?
No.
You're denying having had conversations.
I don't recall.
All right.
My involvement was somewhat limited to evidentiary examination.
Did you have any did you have any opinions about how fast the investigation had focused upon Stephen Avery?
No.
You didn't have any opinions of that kind?
I didn't have anything to do with that part of the case.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you whether, regardless of you having anything to do with that part of the case, did you have an opinion that the investigation had focused too rapidly on Stephen Avery?
No.
So that was not something that you expressed to Ms. Gousset?
No.
All right. Was that something that you expressed to Al Kalanzik?
No.
Do you recall seeing Ms. Gousset telling you in the course of the investigation or the trial of Stephen Avery that she believed the wrong person was being prosecuted, that Gregory Allen was the person who had actually, she believed, assaulted Ms. Bernstein?
No.
Are you denying having such a conversation?
Correct.
With Ms. Gousset?
Correct.
You are? Okay. Let's mark this. I'll show you what's been marked as Exhibit 152 and ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, I was shown this by Attorney Doyle.
Okay.
Yes.
Before you were shown it by Attorney Doyle, had you previously seen it?
No,
I'm going to go through parts of it with you.
sure.
First of all, it states that on October 6th, you were interviewed by Amy Lehman and Deb Strauss. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it states that in the second paragraph, you assisted with the investigation by doing a pace-off, driving a police vehicle to the Shopko store in Green Bay.
Correct.
Then, after the next sentence, the following sentence says, and I'm quoting it here, quote, Nicholson said he drove as fast as he could, approximately 20 miles over the speed limit. Nicholson said that there was a second police vehicle that also drove the distance. However, the vehicle was driven at posted speed limits. Deputy Judy Dvorak drove the second vehicle, end quote. Do you see those things? Did you tell those things to Miss Lehman and Miss Strauss?
Yes.
Then it says, quote, Nicholson said they drove fast to see how long it would take to get to Green Bay and obtain a receipt and an alibi if Avery was looking for one for his defense, end quote. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Who made the suggestion that Avery might have been looking to obtain a receipt and an alibi for his defense, and therefore the pace-off should be done? I can phrase it another way. Was that your idea?
No.
Was it somebody who was superior to you?
Correct.
Was it Captain Bales?
I think it was the sheriff.
Okay. What caused you to think it was the sheriff?
Because I remember telling him I had cowboy boots and I wasn't about to run down the beach. He says, well, do what you can.
Okay. The next sentence says, quote, Nicholson was asked if it was taken into account that Avery and his wife said that they had their 5 children with them when they went to Shopko, end quote. Did the agents ask that to you?
Where's that? I didn't see that.
In the paragraph that we're on, where you're talking about how long it would take to get to Green Bay and to obtain a receipt, the second following sentence. Do you see where I'm referencing?
Yes.
Okay. Did you say that to the agents?
I didn't know what they were referring to.
Okay. It says that you said in response, I'm going to ask this again.
Mm-hmm.
Were you asked if it was taken into account that Avery and his wife had said they had their 5 children with them when they went to Shopko?
I don't recall.
All right. Then it says, quote, Nicholson stated that he couldn't remember if he knew Avery had children at that time or not, end quote. Did you tell that to the agents?
Evidently.
Okay. Do you recall telling that to the agents?
Not exactly. I recall being interviewed by the agent.
Well, you said a couple of things that caught my ear. Are you saying that you were interviewed by only one agent?
Agents.
Agents. Both agents.
Mm-hmm.
And do you recall if you told them that you did not know the Averys had children?
Rephrase?
Sure. Here's what the statement says. Quote, Nicholson stated that he couldn't remember if he knew Avery had children at that time or not, end quote. I'm asking you if that's what you told the agents.
I don't think that's correct.
Okay. What do you think is correct?
I knew they had children.
Okay. Do you think
So
whether
you
or
were
not
lying to the agents.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something weird going on here. Okay, do you think whether or not they had children and were taking the children to Green Bay was a relevant factor in the face-off?
No.
Why not?
I don't believe I knew if that was how relevant that would be. I don't think the children would be driving the. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to take into account having to get them and load them in the car.
Right.
You know, that whole 9 yards. It's not just like they could just jump in the car and drive. It's not the way it works.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Apparently, he
Yeah,
didn't ever
especially-
have to take his children to shopping.
I mean,
Right.
it was practically twin newborns, right? I mean, they were
Yep.
Yeah.
tiny
They were-
babies.
They were very young. Yeah. Okay. So you think there would be
3
no
little
distance?
ones.
Oh, absolutely.
Good Lord, yeah. It'll take you a good 15 minutes.
I was going to say
Get
at least
in the car.
10 minutes to get them
Yeah.
loaded in the car, and
Yeah. And then to get them out.
yeah, that too.
Yeah.
And dealing with them, you're going to be speeding. I don't think so. Anyway,
And then shopping.
and then
you know,
shopping,
And then,
yeah,
yeah.
having to corral them, yeah. It's all
He just
it's all
went-
relevant.
20 miles over the speed limit, went to the register, got a receipt, and timed it.
Right, done, timed, gotcha.
Uh,
Okay. So you think there would be no distance variable whether they had no children or foul children with them?
I don't think there would be a variable.
Okay. Quote, Nicholson was asked if he knew the time frame that was needed to put Avery at the scene of the crime, end quote. Do you remember being asked that?
I don't remember being asked that.
Then it says, quote, Nicholson stated that he was not aware of the time frame for Avery to be a viable suspect, end quote. Did you tell that to the agents?
I don't remember the exact conversation. It's written here.
he's lying.
Okay. Well, reflecting back on the events, is it the fact that you were not aware of the time frame for Avery to be a viable suspect when you did the face-off?
I had no idea how long it would take me to do the trip.
Not the question.
You know, it's kind of what's the point of doing the trip if you didn't know the time frame, or if somebody didn't know the time frame? Why would you?
That's not the question. Yeah.
Why would you?
just avoid-
And why would you speed if you're just making a trip to
Right.
Shopko in Green Bay?
Well, because Zurich told him.
Told
to.
him. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
interesting. That's interesting to force that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Did you have any idea how long it was supposed to take? How long it was supposed to have taken the Averys?
No,
So that was not told to you by the sheriff when he assigned you to do the face-off.
no.
Okay. If you'd go to the second page, please, second full paragraph. Quote, Nicholson said that he had a gut feeling that Avery did not commit the crimes he was charged with, end quote. Do you see that statement?
Yes, I do.
Did you say that to the agents?
I think there's a discrepancy here.
Between what and what?
I told them I had a feeling that Avery was not involved after I heard of the DNA release results.
Oh, come on.
Let me see if I understand. You were interviewed according to this document on the 6th of October, 2003.
Correct.
That's a little bit less than a month after the publicity comes out about what the DNA shows, correct?
You say so.
And you're saying that when you spoke to the agents, it was your thought that you had a gut. No, it was your gut feeling. Now that the DNA results are out, that Avery didn't commit the crimes.
Yeah, yes.
He's a
Well,
liar.
Well, you'd have more than a gut feeling at that point, would you?
Objection. Argumentative.
Join.
Mr. May.
You can answer.
It was my gut feeling that the evidence has turned the case.
I see. Would you agree with me that there's no statement included in here that that's what you've told the Department of Justice agents?
Form of the question.
You can answer.
What I just told you is what I told the agents. I did not say I had a gut feeling that he was. This statement is not correct.
Okay. The statement then goes on and says, quote, when asked why he had that gut feeling, Nicholson was unable to explain why he felt that way, other than to say that the only evidence was the positive identification, end quote. Did you tell that to the agents?
I think in conjunction with the conversation with regards to the DNA findings, the conversation was much longer than this little 3-line paragraph.
Well, regardless of that, did you tell the agents that the only evidence was the positive identification at the time, not after the DNA, but at the time of the trial? Did you tell the agents when you gave this interview that the only evidence at the trial was the positive identification?
Object form. Go ahead. I forget which lawyers I am. I'm sorry.
You're Covelli and Bascom.
Okay. Go ahead, JD.
Object to the form, but you can go ahead, sir, if you can.
If I recall, I explained that the only evidence I knew of on the case was the positive identification.
And therefore, you had a gut feeling that Stephen Avery was not guilty.
After the DNA results were released, up until that point, I assumed the courts convicted the correct person.
Oh my God, he's lying.
That's not what you told Brenda Guzzi, is it?
Yeah.
I've never...
You told Brenda Guzzi at the time the exact thing that you told these agents. You told her it was your gut feeling that Stephen Avery wasn't guilty.
Object is argumentative.
Is that correct?
No, I never spoke to Brenda Guzzi. We did not have any types of conversations, casual conversations. The relationship between Brenda and myself was strictly professional.
I'm talking about professional conversations during the course of the trial between you and her and Al Kalanzik.
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
Wow.
You're denying that you told either one of them that you had a gut feeling that the wrong guy was being convicted.
That's correct.
Did you say that the conversation between you and the agents was much longer than is evidenced by this exhibit?
Yes.
How much longer would you say?
They were in my office a good half hour.
Did they exhibit any documents to you?
Not that I recall.
And you're sure you discussed with them the DNA evidence as being what changed your opinion in the case?
Correct.
So you would say that up until you were interviewed by the Department of Justice agents, you had never told any other person that you thought the Stephen Avery conviction was not correct.
Objection to the form of the question.
Or that you had a gut feeling that Stephen Avery was not the person who should have been convicted.
Object to form.
You can answer.
The phrase you're using, gut feeling,
Yeah.
that's something I don't recall.
Well, you understood looking at this exhibit
Sure.
that quotation marks are put around
Sure.
the quote-unquote gut feeling phrase. Do you see that?
I do.
And you're saying that's not a phrase that you used?
That's correct.
That's all. I can
Let
be
me
asking
just-
if you want. You want to do it?
Okay. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Okay. Mr. Bascom's going to ask a couple questions here. Let me just ask you a question. This exhibit number 152, was the first time you saw this just the other day when you met with Amy Dole.
Correct.
Did anyone from the Department of Justice ever send you that report, ask you to read it and verify whether or not it was correct?
No, they did not.
You're aware from your work in the strike that. Did anyone ever send that to you and ask you to sign it and swear to the fact that it's correct?
No.
That's all I have.
Reporter. There being no further questions, it's concluded. Oh
Never
my
been no-
God, what a liar. It's
You
in
couldn't get-
quotation marks.
Yeah,
Dang
you couldn't
it,
get
I
away from
missed
that
the
quick
whole
enough.
thing.
Yeah,
Crap.
you missed a good one. You missed a good one, Kay.
God, he's lying.
I'll
his
go back.
teeth off. It's good.
Yeah,
Wow.
I
What
forgot
was his
about-
name?
this is Fred Nicholson.
Oh my God, what a liar.
Is he a detective
Oh.
as well?
Yeah, he's 27 and a half years. He mainly he has specialties too, though. He did fingerprints and photography.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Wow. Talk about being impeached. That was perfect.
Yeah, well, that's the danger, you know, when you end up being one of the last ones that gets your deposition taken. They've got all this other information. They had it anyway, but you know what I mean.
Well, it's just from what he said to what's her names? Amy Lehman and
Amy, yeah,
Strauss.
and Deb Strauss. That's right. In quotation marks.
In quotation marks.
He was screwed, blued, and tattooed.
Oh no, I said I had a gut feeling after they got the DNA, after the DNA proved him
Right.
guilty. Oh jeez. And then he drew back on the gut feeling phrase. Oh jeez. What a liar. So you can't believe anything in that deposition that he said.
Well, not really. No, I can't. I mean, I remember this from reading this long ago, and I had actually forgotten about it. And I'm thinking to myself, good grief, man, come on. You know, and what's really interesting to me, and I guess maybe I get it, but you know, just in terms of keeping things straight, and I'm talking about from Amy Lehman and Deb Strauss. Why wouldn't you record these interviews that you're having with these people? That way, there's no question.
No kidding.
I mean,
they
come
probably
on,
do.
Yeah,
they probably do,
probably
just in case they might be helpful. But then when something blows up, then it's like, oh shoot, we can't use this
disappeared.
one.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, the
I mean,
fact that Kasurik didn't tell him how much time he needed to make that trip in, that pace off.
Why make the trip?
He told him to go 10, 15, and 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. So he had to do it 3 different times, right?
Well, no, I think it was, 10 to 10,
vary
15. It. Yeah, just vary it. But you're going to have to speed. Well, I want you to rush to get there. Basically, get there as quick as you can without running code.
And Dvorak was driving the speed limit.
Yeah, I don't.
He had to have known how much time he had. What in order to know how fast to go or whatever.
Well,
see if he could
let's just say if he didn't know the exact time, to me, he would have to know that Kasurik was looking at the time frame. He had to know that. I mean, an idiot could see it if he's having 2 people do it, one driving over the speed limit, the other one driving the speed limit. Oh,
he's just a liar. He was impeached so bad there.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, he was scared of Kasurik. I agree, Silky.
Hey, there's Doc. Hey, Doc. It was pretty early when we started. Let me put this up on screen. Doc. This revealed the utter desperation that the sheriff displayed in order to nail Stephen Avery. Kasurik displayed massive investigative bias in television. He did. I mean, this is just admitting it right in black and white. There's absolutely no reason to have that done twice. No reason at all, in my opinion. Unless you're trying to.
Twice?
One person driving the speed limit, the other one driving over to time it.
Well,
he just drive.
Well, Dvorak was going to tell him really, what the truth behind it really was. More than likely.
It's absolutely nuts to me.
More time than what he had to make it fit.
Yep.
Unreal.
Anyway,
And the 5 kids on top
and the
of it.
5 kids, right? I mean, I've dealt with 5 kids, and we had a van at one time. We could get everybody in, but my God, it was a packed house, and sometimes a madhouse. Just telling you.
Especially when they're really little like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All his kids were little. The infants
They were.
and the other 3.
Yeah, those. I think those kids, the babies, were only like a month old, something like that. 5 weeks
or less.
or less. Yeah, they were very young.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, now we're down to 2. Woohoo! Almost to the end.
Boucher.
Taking long. Well, the next one will be the last one for October 13th, which will be Coburn. Let's see here. Let's see if I can pull that up. It's pretty short. Let's see here. Depositions. Coburn.
Yeah.
That way we kind of know
All he
what we're looking at.
did was transfer a phone call.
Yeah, I've been kind of in a little bit of a, well, it's actually been a couple of week discussion with this guy on Reddit. Yeah, and he's another one that just wants to put this phone call off, kind of really off far to the side. Fine. If the phone call wasn't important, then why bother having it? Why bother making Kosarik memorialize it 8 years after the fact? It makes absolutely no sense. Coburn's deposition is 26 pages total, so probably 22, 23 pages. I knew it was very short. His is the last one for the 13th, and then we'll have Cachet, and his is quite a bit longer. I check that. That way we, again, know what we're looking at. 26th. Jean Cachet. It's 198 pages, so it's 3+ hours, and I may just end up splitting it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty long. I knew it was long.
Mm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it says 198 pages. It's probably more like 180 or so. It's still 3+ hours.
Yeah.
As I look at it right now, we'll probably do it in 2 sessions. I don't want to kill people, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, let me get rid of that. So hopefully, people that have never read through these, have some interest, or at minimum learn some more information. These depositions, the entire case, it's all got kind of drowned out at this point. I mean, Cam really tried to drown it and put it underwater and just suffocate it, and then bury it under the water. But the truth is, to me, this was a really big thing, and part of all of it. It's the link between the 85 case and the 2005 case. To me, I'm not asking anyone to believe what I believe, but it's all connected
I'm with you
to
on
me.
that, Jack. No doubt.
It's all, yeah. Well, there's too many coincidences, we get into this time frame. You got to consider October 26th when Cachet gives his deposition. 5 days later, on the 31st, Teresa disappears.
Yeah.
Kosarik is not forced to testify and give his depo, same as Vogel. I'm sorry, I just have real problems there, and I don't want to come across in these grand conspiracy things. I just know what I see as the end
Surmise
result.
what you will. Yeah.
That's right. It's exactly right. I'm not saying a gang of people got together and said, hey, we got to nail this guy because we can't have this shit in court. And Kosarik tried to get out of testifying. Or then he tried, and the judge said, no, you're going to testify. And he's like, well, my testimony should be limited. My duties as sheriff are protect. No, they're not. You're going to testify. You're going to answer all the questions. Okay, we got
James Crane has a question. Oh, sorry.
Yep, go for it.
Has anyone ever produced who who made the call from the Brown County Sheriff's Office and who Colburn passed it on to?
No.
Not that I'm aware.
No. You know, that's another part of it. To me, if this was a real thing, unless they're burying something, that call gets. Let's say that call comes in, and this guy truly identifies himself, and Colburn actually believes he's a detective from Brown County or whatever. He passes it on up to the detective bureau, and they take the call. And this guy's saying, "I got a guy here who says he's, you guys got a guy serving in prison for something he did." And there's no reporting, no reports at all. There's nothing. And that's not even questioned at this point, because until Colburn makes the statement, nobody even knew. Anyway, go ahead.
I would think also even 9 or 10 years later, or it wouldn't even be that long.
No,
7 or 8 years later.
8 years later.
They could have gone to Brown County and very possibly found that detective that made that call.
That's right. And who this person was, the detective was questioning and made this statement to him. There wasn't like some guy in a bubble that they didn't identify. And
who did you talk to at Manitowoc?
That's right.
And
that's right.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
So, but see, that end of it gets completely buried because Colburn has now made this statement, but the rest of it's not done, as far as we know. We've actually requested documentation about it, and no such documents exist. Blah blah blah. Okay, maybe that's true. Again, I don't want to put any innuendo out there, but this calls into question why wasn't it followed up? A minimum report followed up on. Who made the statement is key. If it was Gregory Allen before he actually got arrested, you've got a big problem here, a really big problem. So I'm not saying that that's who it was at all. I don't know. I'm just saying I've always questioned this call and why Colburn was forced to write this report, memorializing something that he says they're all saying, well, it really wasn't important. They didn't have to do it and blah, blah. Then why do it at all? It's always bothered me. Yeah, and it'll always bother me till we have an answer, which I doubt we ever will. Just a rabbit hole that you can't go nowhere in. So I'm just kind of stuck in it and don't really talk about it too much anymore because I get pissed about it. Well, I get mad about it. It bothers me, man. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, all right. Before we get out of here, hey, we've done pretty good tonight. It's only 8:30 my time, so we've done pretty good, and I'm pretty hungry. I have pizza waiting.
I'm not sure what I got waiting, but something to munch on.
Yep, absolutely.
Pizza sounds good.
Yeah, it does because I'm pretty damn hungry.
Now, do you have pineapple on that pizza?
You and I are really close, Susan. You know better than that. It's just not even a good question. Not even good. No, pretty much. Well, I know my wife likes the pineapple on the pizza and my daughter, but I can't really speak about anyone else in the family ordering pizza like that. To me, pineapple belongs in a drink. Maybe have one for breakfast. Cut slices, put up pina colada, cut up pineapple rings, put on your ham at Christmas or Thanksgiving. That's, or just eat it, but not on the pizza. That's just me. Nope, I ordered a Philly cheesesteak pizza.
Yum. Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Enjoy.
Final comments from anyone? Anybody have anything? Katie?
No. No comments.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you personally for the excellent reading tonight. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All righty. Cherie, final comments? Oh, Cherie may have stepped away.
Oh, she did.
She
Okay.
did.
Okay. Well, I want to thank her for her reading as well. Jay, final thoughts, comments?
I don't have any final thoughts today, but it was an interesting read anyway. But I did remember somebody saying that they measured how fast they were going to try and go to the store to see how Stephen was going to go and get the receipt and get back to where the crime scene was. But you can tell that was planned as well.
Yeah, that was kind of a big deal. I mean, to me, it would be a huge deal. Well, we sped 10, 20 miles over the speed limit, and we were able to make it, so he can too. Okay. But you don't have any proof that's what he did. That don't matter. Proof doesn't matter. 16 alibi witnesses didn't matter either, so.
No, they just wanted to pin it on him, and that's what they wanted to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd agree with that. All righty, Jay, thank you very much for joining us and helping out Reed.
No problem.
Really appreciate it. Yep. And Susan, sister, final thoughts.
Liar, liar, liar.
Pants on fire?
Pants on fire. Lied so easily on that. And you know, he's doing it for Kasuric. That's my gut feeling.
Oh, you're in quotes? That's funny.
Yes. Quote unquote gut feeling.
Yeah, you know, for anyone that wants to read his report that Amy Lehman and Deb Strauss did, it's in the library. All those that we were able to get are in the library. Of what they wrote down anyway. He's saying that report is wrong, but anyway, I'm not going to get off on that tangent. Well, I want to thank everyone that's came along. Oh, I did want to mention one more thing, and this is not necessarily foul play per se, but I mentioned it yesterday. New Scott, this is about Kratz coming back, and he wanted to do this Q&A, and anyway, New Scott's making that happen on his YouTube channel. Now, these are written questions and a written response from Kratz. And he did the first one. Yeah, that was a little alteration of the facts, but okay. It is what it is, but it's quite interesting. Yeah. I want to defend New Scott a little bit here, despite whatever people choose to do and believe and all that, people have a right to do that. And he chose, because of how he views things, to do this on his channel. And you can't fault him for that. And anybody that's got a Gmail has got a YouTube account, and anybody can do their own creation if they want to rebut or say something. But he's getting a lot of attacks from people that I think is a bit unwarranted, because he doesn't necessarily look at things the way a truther does or a guilter does. He's trying to let the flow of information happen and present it in his own way, and not taking necessarily. He has picked a side, but in this instance, he's not picking a side to try to come back and beat Kratz up or whoever may be given the information. That's not what he's trying to do here at all. So I just want to say
I think he's being unfairly attacked myself. I mean, he chose to give Kratz a platform, so deal with it, people. I mean, geez.
I understand, but it's at the same time, I've been critical of people that have tried to tell us what to put on our channel, and that's okay. I expect that. You have to, when you put yourself out there publicly, you kind of got to expect that and just live with it, And I'm, and he will.
It is. I mean, it's social media after all. Jesus.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Insanity central.
Especially get on some threads. I mean, it's not too bad on X at this point in time, but there definitely topics you can get into. God, way the hell out there. I stay away from that stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Anyway, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, check it out. It's a video he released yesterday. It's definitely interesting, and you can comment on it or not or whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna move on and get us out of here. I want to thank everyone for coming and listening in. 2 more to go, and we'll be done with depositions. I'm sure they'll come up at some point again in the future, but not a memorialization, kind of like what we're doing now, getting them read out and talked about. So with that said, if you like what we're doing, give us a like, a share, a subscribe. Leave us a comment, what you think, questions, whatever. Join us on Discord. Always people around at one point or another to talk about the case. So with that said, I'm going to say this has been a Foul Play production.